Both of your guns suck.
Did you see that it's spelled?
True.
Did you
Both
see that
of
it's
your
You're
guns
right,
suck.
It is a
What is
spelled Aussie minigun.
Damn.
I don't really
I
care
have
about spells.
I have
I'll
a
be honest.
professional kill streak, Natasha. Strange.
Yeah, you're
So-
weird.
I
loser.
mean, mine is also professional. I'm a loser.
I eat
I
lead.
have a professional kill streak, normal minigun. Strange.
I eat
Sweet.
lead chips.
I mean, I
Fucking
take donations.
Australian users, bro.
I take donations if you want. If you want to know.
Australian users, yucky.
Alright, anyway.
Like strange
Anyway.
fists of steel.
Let's start the review right now.
Alright.
Alright, sweet. So,
Mass extinction of it.
what I'm going to talk about first is how to fight the mid-fight, then we'll go into pushing onto point after that mid-fight is done and you guys lost, or holding the point if you won that mid-fight. Any questions, anything like that?
Nope.
Alright, cool. So, yeah, mid-fights, it's just going to be walking straight through here. You never really want to go bats, you never really want to go ramp. You always want to go out shutter, and there's one of 3 ways that I would prefer you guys playing this. One is the absolute best, the second is alright, but the third I really don't like, and is playing on the left side. Any one of these options on the left side. So, I'll talk about them. And the third one is also going under, but we don't talk about that. So, the way that I usually like to play mid-fights, because my demo's playing on the left side, he's spamming out people. My main goal, playing on the left side over here, not so much walking in because that allows their other team to focus you down and then you're going to be down a heavy, but just staying over here, just being mindful of who's on ramp, who's in shutter, who's by crates as well, especially on fans if there's a sniper up there. Usually the spy is going to be running dead ringer, so you don't need to worry about a decloaked often, maybe? And people bombing in should be dealt by your pyro and or scout. So your main goal, focus point. You're getting a little bit of beam, your demo's getting a little bit of beam. You call the same focuses, shoot the same things, and this fight is going to be one that's not going to be quick, guaranteed, but at least consistent. And that's what we're looking for here. Consistent gameplay. So. Whew. The most that I really want to look for when I'm playing this spot is just who's closest to me. I usually shoot them, then focus the people that I'm supposed to do. Usually people are going to be around toxic, by shutter, by ramp. Sometimes there's a heavy that crosses over, but because you're so fast, you can see him. And if he's not fast enough, or if he's not being dealt by the roof players, you can just shoot him on the cross. And then he's out of the fight for a little bit. If you don't kill him, then he's just going to be eating behind over here. And again, roof pressure is just really, really oppressive on this crate spot over here, so he'd have to contend with that. On the other hand, anybody in shutter, anybody on toxic, anybody on ramp can still shoot you. You're still in an open area, but at the very least, because you're not walking forward, you also have a chance to, admittedly it's not ideal, but if you see that you're not really getting picks, if your team is kind of dying, you can back up all the way to ramp. Maybe sometimes if the pressure's too great, but you guys are getting really nice picks and you want to restabilize a little bit, get some health before you walk in, playing toxic's pretty alright. And yeah, just being mindful and walking in, that's what I want you to do for most of the mid-fights. Most of the mid-fights should be taken like this, if not every single one of them. There's not going to be a reason for people going into crates, going by under, going all the way onto bats, maybe playing fans, sticking shutter, playing secret, or just playing toxic the entire time. The only thing that I want you to do, walk left side, beam people on the point, never worry about crates, just focus on the people on these 3 spots, being mindful of people by crates, being mindful of people on roof if they do bomb in. And yeah, just playing the game aggressively. However, this is reliant on one specific thing. Your team knows what they're doing as well. If there's nobody on roof, the soldier bombs in, you're not in a position to deny him. People are going to be bombed in on ramp, your med could die, your sniper could die, and there's not much that you yourself can do other than turn around, avoiding the mid-fight, but allowing their team to get space, which is not what you want. The other thing too, if their heavy does happen to go crates, and nobody's dealing damage on the point, like your demo for example, maybe he's dead, maybe a sniper's not really getting any pick as well, it might be better for you to play by toxic for a little bit, because if you stay by this area, the heavy's going to mulch you, people are going to mulch you. In fact, crates is really, really good if the demo's not alive on the other team, but that still doesn't count any sort of roof pressure. or any single person trying to go in, trying to get behind. It's a bit of a mess. So the other thing too, if people are just focusing you down, sometimes you just die. But that's not a mistake on your part, because you're forcing them to use so much ammo onto you. And it allows your team to get focus calls. You're still dealing damage to the people that are shooting you as well. So you calling who you're fighting is really, really nice. And dying on this point is not as bad as it seems. It's actually alright if your team gets something out of it. If they don't, then... I mean, it's a mid-fight. What can you really do? Not much more than this, so... yeah, that's the way that I want you to play it, and also just be courteous, just throw a sandwich when you're walking up, just so your demo can take it, just so your medic can take it. Anybody can take it, but most importantly, somebody takes it. So, yeah. Any questions about this?
About the mid fight or like?
Just about
specific
this.
position?
Just about this one spot. We'll go into every single spot and the reasons why I think they're good, why they're bad, why I think they could be good in some situations, bad in others. Just going throughout this entire map. We got 2 hours to work with.
Okay.
But any questions about this specific push, this specific idea, all the things that can go wrong, all the things that are really good about it, why this is the best one, and why the other ones are not really that good?
The only question I have is, doesn't that going there like cause splash on both you and your combo?
So, ideally, your demo's playing towards the middle of the point.
Okay.
If he's forced to back up, he's backing up towards here. So if you're playing away from your combo like this, you're just walking in, hugging, not so much hugging this corner, but just playing around this area, there is a chance, but then again, if your demo's backing up, he's really low for the mid-fight, you guys are probably going to lose that, and even still, that's on your demo. Because he needs to be arrowed, he needs to be healthy for a fight. If, for some reason, the fight doesn't go his way, he'll back up, but he won't be in... If he's smart about it, then he'll try to avoid trying to be around you. If he walks in and is taking damage and somehow lands nearby you, then, yeah, there's a chance that you could take the same damage, but... This is the quickest way for you to get on the point. This is the best way for you to deal with people on the point. So, ideally, specifically, your demo doesn't walk into you. And he chooses to play the right side, chooses to play towards the middle of the point. Just so he can avoid taking splash from you, but also being in a position to walk up, deal with all 3 angles. As for other classes, like Pyro, like Scout, like Medic, anybody else who would be on the ramp or on the roof, maybe. But at the same time, your medic should be playing closer towards Toxic, playing over by the back of ramp instead of all the way by the corner over here. And if he's walking in just hugging right here, then something's going terribly wrong, because he can peek multiple different sight lines, so your medic should be playing a little bit back. Or, you know, if Sniper's dead, if no pressure is being applied to your medic, then he can come out and play a little bit behind towards the middle of the point, being spy aware. But, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. One more thing I'll add. While walking left side is pretty good, I don't suggest walking the right side, purely because it has the same issues that it comes with walking into crates. Mostly because roof pressure, mostly because you're actually away from your combo, you want to be closer towards your combo, which is why it's worth the risk if you're sitting over here, just walking up only if you see people on the point and they're not dealing with you, so you can go ahead and peek other angles if you wanted to, but I wouldn't suggest going right because of the same issues we'll go in later. One last thing before I change it up. I don't want you walking in until it's absolutely clear, and I don't want you fighting a heavy if he's safe, if he's trying to peek you over here. Let the heavy walk into you. You have a much better angle just waiting for him to walk into you than he does walking into you, so yeah, don't try to play this aggressive fight. Just wait for him to walk into you, because then again, if you do win the fight, let's just say it goes right for you in this fight, people can jump off bats, people can deal damage to you. It's not a guarantee that you'll live if you go for this. Let other people deal with him, or if he's walking into you, deal with him with a better situation while you're closer to your team. Don't try to go in for a hero play. But yeah, with that being said, let's talk about the other mids. I want to just highlight one thing about Toxic. If you choose to play here for the mid fight, your demo's probably dead and you're looking to back up, or you're looking to salvage something if their demo also dies, or a pick substantially good as that one comes up, like a medic or a sniper. So you're just playing around here with your medic, watching for bombs, watching for spy, but at the same time, you're not sitting here. You're waiting for a chance for you to walk up. That's the best part about Toxic. This is really good at allowing you from getting from point A to point B, while also keeping cover, doing damage as much as you can, being close by your team, and having 2 different angles for you to walk out in case things don't go your way. So only really play here, not as a standstill hold, but just as a transition point from point A to point B. As for other things like Secret, this is also a nice idea on paper because you're blocking. You're not going to take you're not going to take damage from half of the map, but at the same time, you're not looking at half the map. And that doesn't guarantee that a sniper is not in shutter. That doesn't guarantee that people won't walk into you anyway, especially from the right side. The most important thing about this is that you just have the cover and you're playing. This is really good if a sniper and demo is dead, but you want to be a little bit forward. But you're also not in a position where you can get into Toxic. Ideally, it's going to be going from Shutter to Toxic to over here on the left side of Death Wall, but the other ideal thing is just to get into Death Wall in general, so this kind of avoids it, especially during a mid-fight. We'll talk about what you can do with this later when you're trying to push, or when you're trying to hold, but I don't really like this for a mid-fight because you're obscuring so much vision and you're away from your team. Your demo's trying to walk up, he's trying to get space, you're kind of relinquishing space being in here. You don't want to be poking and prodding people from across the map, even though it works sometimes. You want to be in with your demo. You want to create space with your team. Most importantly, you want to be a wall that people can't pass through. Or at least they have to go around you in order for them to get to your team. Which is what you don't want, but people are there to support you in that regard. People on the roof, people on the point. You guys create that wall, but you are the glue that holds everything together. You putting the wall right here, people are in front of the wall. They're just gonna get shot. So that's not good. It's not good. You're only really protecting Shutter. So yeah, I don't really like this spot for that reason. At the same time, I also don't like going the right side, purely because roof pressure, people walking into you. But the other thing, the rotate is just too long. Same thing with bats, same thing with ramp. I just don't like the rotate to this as much as I would the rotate from Shutter all the way over to Death Wall. Just playing this angle is also really baity. It puts you at near the same way, same side. Not my bad. It puts you at the same line that your team is walking across, but you're playing very reactionary instead of proactive. And even more so, if you try to be proactive, you're putting yourself in a worse spot because of people pressuring you on point, roof, anything of the sort. And if you try to walk in, you just get mulched if the heavy's playing smart, or if the heavy's playing dumb, like maybe you see the minigun barrel flash, you could try to go in for a hero play, but again, it's a mid-fight. You should be playing with your team. You should not be going for stray picks, especially in a position where this is only really good if your entire team is dead and you want to go for like 2 really good picks, or your team has the point, you want to be away from the post fight, or you want to be away for the Uber exchange for a little bit while also being close to point, and then just peeking when your team is up with you. If your team's with you, then this is fine, but not in this regard because your team does not have positions yet. We'll talk about this spot later and why this is really good for holding. Probably one of the best spots for you to hold. But for a mid-fight, do not go here. Don't go to the right side to try to walk in. Don't go over to the crates to walk in with this head glitch. Prioritize playing on left side Death Wall. And going back to Toxic if your team is kind of eating it, for lack of a better word. Any questions to that regard?
So my heavy season on mid fights in Ashville, I would always go right side because my team wanted me to basically be a bullet sponge, so so combo can do a lot of damage and not get hurt a lot.
So
and that was basically my job.
thing about that is, what is different from you going here compared to here?
Because my demo played there, and that's why I asked, when I get splashed. So it was a combo issue.
Okay. Well,
So
one thing I do want to say, I absolutely agree with you. That's what my team told me to do in seasons past as well. However, what I've realized playing this spot is that it does not guarantee success. You're a damage sponge. You're not with your team, and you're kind of just hoping that your medic buffs you to 450 and nobody's shooting you before you can get over to this spot anyway. The main thing is that people just focus you, and then they focus people over here. When you want to be a damage sponge, you're with your team, you're soaking up the damage so that people behind you or people around you can start dealing damage with you. This is just taking it to a whole new level. You are kind of not really protecting anybody, not really being a damage sponge, but you're kind of just feeding. Those are the two differences that I really see in that. You're away from your team. This is not so much sponging damage as much as you're feeding. I mean, think about it. A team is all going to be around here. A demo, if he's not on Toxic, if he's not by the left side by ramp, he's going to be playing mid. Guess who he's going to focus first? With his team. That is going to kill you even faster than you would be if you played this spot. You will just die if you sit over here. And that's not to say that it's, doesn't have any benefits. If the demo dies, then this becomes a really, really nice spot, especially if everybody's on ramp, nobody's shutter, nobody's crates, nobody's bats as well. But that's not realistic. The other good part about this spot is that it covers both of these angles, which allows you to start peeking this plus a third angle. But yeah, I don't know, it just seems like too long of a rotate. You're already sponging damage when you're walking out of the shutter. It's best to just play the angle that's closest to your team so that you're sponging damage with a purpose. This is sponging damage because you want to be in and want to support your team, but also feed. At least in my opinion. And keep in mind, I'm not trying to detract anybody from going over to these spots and trying out something new if it does happen to work, but from my experience, this doesn't really work all too well, this doesn't really work all too well, this is the most consistent place for you to get stuff done. And when I mean playing here, I don't mean playing in ramp in general. Playing over here like this. This would be better for a post fight if you were caught on ramp and needed to hide and heal. And then repush, but I don't really see it work for the mid fight for the same reasons that playing crates would. Not so much that there's roof pressure, but that you're just kind of peeking into a sightline and playing reactive instead of proactive. But any more questions? I hope that cleared it. I hope that cleared it up.
yeah. So one last thing is, if my demo is playing where I'm supposed to be playing, where should I go then?
So your demo's playing on the right side while you're playing the left side, or your demo's playing on the left side while you're playing the left side?
Yeah, he's playing the left side.
So ideally, he's going over here for a buff or arrows, and then walking back towards the middle of the point. If he's walking at the same angle that you are, then I don't agree with that either.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my demo did. That's why I did right side. I just want to know, if I get a team like that in the future, the demo's usually main caller gets what main caller wants. So, what should I do?
You tell him, because it does not matter what he wants. What he wants is bad. So.
Okay.
I don't mean to be that guy, but, if he's adamant on losing, then going into Death Wall on the left side and forcing you to play a different angle, then no. No. That's not good. The reason why I'm telling you all of this right here is mostly because, yeah, these are common spots, but they also have common weaknesses, and people don't realize them up until they start playing against people who know those weaknesses. Telling your demo, hey, maybe you can play towards the middle of the point, sounds like a weird idea, and that still doesn't stop him from walking into ramp or habitually walking over by the left side of Death Wall to get something done. But at that point, you're doing more than just listening. You're kind of just helping your team at that point. You're being a team player by disagreeing with him. So you gotta tell him, like, hey, you know, I get why you'd walk here during the mid fight. Let me walk here instead, be a damage sponge while you walk over by the mid. This allows you to be more proactive if you're getting buffs, if you're getting healed. It also allows you to just see more things or react to things quicker. I mean, Demo should be ideally somebody who gets in after people walk in for him. Or maybe he gets an advantage of some sort. That's the best thing that a Demo can really push off of. That's what's best about any single class if they're choosing to walk in, if there's an advantage. So, your Demo having that for the mid-fight is much better than you having that for the mid-fight, for example. Okay. Because let me ask you this. Did your Demo take a whole lot of damage walking this spot?
Probably.
Did he
usually dead.
Yeah, that too. It's like, yeah, he took a lot of damage, not just because you were dead, which is going to, you know, allow them to focus fire your Demo. But if they choose to focus your Demo instead, then yeah, like playing over here by the left side, he can back up if need be, but at the same time, he's just kind of away, you know? His team needs to be behind him and in front of him. He needs to deal pressure, he needs to walk in, but people should be walking in as well. And besides, not much is going to change between sitting over here, sitting on the middle of point, if he is adamant on playing on the left side of Death Wall. But the other thing too is his stickies reach here first, as opposed to playing over here where they're going to reach second. And if he has team support, nobody's bombing in, focusing him, or even if he does get killed, your team is able to capitalize off of what he's done, then it's good. But if your Demo's just saying, hey, you know, I'm going to walk over here and you guys are going to listen to me because I say so, have a backbone. Tell him no. Not saying you don't. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's a weird question to ask, especially since the Demo should get what he wants, ideally. But this is one of those few cases where you should just not so much argue with him, but tell him why it's wrong. Now, that sounds like arguing. Never mind. Just tell him from your side. But, yeah, any more questions? What would happen if a sniper goes ramp purely just to kill you on... So if he does that, then the rotate is way too long. And if he just does that to kill you, there's not much you can really do about it. Even if the sniper's in Shutter doing what he's supposed to do, if you're over here and the sniper's peeking you, you did all you could. The only thing that your team can really do is capitalize what that sniper wasn't able to kill. Like, let's just say he was killing your Demo and chose not to kill you instead. The push would be infinitely worse for you. Would it be infinitely worse for a Demo to live and you get shot in the face? Maybe. Of course, maybe. But, you know, there's more of a chance for your Demo and your team to re-push than it would be if you were alive and the Demo died. And I think it is just unfortunate. It's not so much bad because losing a mid-fight isn't the end of the world, but... let's see. Yeah, no, he's weird. He's very weird. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Some snipers will do that. The only thing that you can really do is, like, just kind of be fine with it. Because if he's shooting you, he's not shooting anyone else. Plus, he's also exposing himself into Shutter. Because that's realistically where Sniper's going to be. If he goes ramp to kill you, that's so foreign. That sounds so weird.
Can I just say it's just really bad? Like, who is he going to shoot there?
Well, no. It's not even Demo. But the way that I think about it, anybody who's peeking this angle is dead. But why would you be in this angle when this angle is so much better? You know? Like, people are walking out, and you're just dealing with people walking. They're going to walk into you regardless. Why would you play an angle that obscures that? That's so weird. Damn. Who hurt you? I'm sorry about that, man. That fucking sucks. Damn. Damn. Alright. So, any other questions about the mid-fight?
How do I roll out like you did in that like one for fun game? I think that'd win the mid fight.
What?
Like you like flew out of spawn. It was kind of cool.
That wasn't me. Anyway, let's talk about pushes, because this is going to every single thing we've talked about so far is going to overlap in some different way. The only thing that won't really overlap is holding into their bats, playing by crates, but we'll get into that soon. For now, though, let's talk about what you're going to be doing for pushes. There's 3 things that you can do. There's the bats, there's shutter, and there's ramp. I'll talk about ramp and bats first because those are the most simple, but shutter is also going to be talked about last because there's a lot that you can do in shutter, and shutter is basically where you go in order for you to get to these 3 places while getting a buff. Or you could just sit there. But ramp is pretty specific. I don't want you going there alone. I only want you going there to protect your sniper. Moreover, your sniper's ramp, and what you're doing is hugging this left side wall, making sure nobody's bombing in, nobody's walking in from ramp, but also just making sure that no spies decloaking on this crate. It's really weird because this is a corner 90 degrees. There's 2 different spots in this same angle that the spy can really decloak, so just be mindful of that. So when you're clearing it out, just walking in front of it could be the best idea, just checking periodically, but also just checking for people walking ramp, people bombing over. You're just here to protect your sniper. You're not here to walk in yet. Once your sniper takes the shot, and assuming that a team does the correct thing and starts pushing after that shot is done, if the shot lands, let's just say he kills a sniper. He gets space on ramp, that's when you can start playing ramp and playing towards toxic. From there, let's just say, no Ubers are out, it's a dry fight. That's when you can go ahead, start pushing from toxic over to death wall, because again, this is a transition spot, you don't want to sit here all the time. But yeah, that's generally the idea. You go from ramp to toxic to death wall. The other idea that you can do is to play death wall entirely, which is a lot more common and is what people are going to expect to really do. The most that you can really expect is people walking into you from point, people jumping over you, which is also something you're going to have to deal with, but if people don't jump over you, if people don't walk in, you see your combo walking in, that's when you start walking in with your combo. Don't walk in after, don't walk in before, just walk in as soon as your team makes the point, or crosses that line between you and where they're supposed to walk. Any questions on ramp? Okay, sweet. So, bats is also pretty simple. I'll talk about pushing from fans, and then I'll go into jumping all the way from bats to under, maybe going over here, but let's just talk about this, for example. Bats, I really want you to go on if your demo and scout are adamant on taking an Uber through shutter. If they are, there's something that a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but there's something that few people tell me about, or told me about. If they want to take an Uber in any angle, you do not want to be there. You are a useless player who's going to take 0.5 seconds of that Uber that could have been used on your demo or scout. If you take a flash over here, it's really bad for your Uber. If you don't, the Uber can only be as best as it can be. So, what do? You go over here, sitting in the corner, just holding this angle, helping your sniper, helping anybody on bats, but also just making sure you're looking out for spy, maybe you could peek this angle a little bit. As soon as that happens, you need to pay attention to whether or not they're coming back into shutter or whether they're not on point getting space. If they're on point getting space, they're not in shutter, that's when you can start peeking fans a little bit. This is the general idea. And the general idea is that, hey, you're going to be walking on fans, your team is going to be walking on point. I don't really like doing this all too well. It does work sometimes, especially if people are not on the roof as well. If people are all stuck ramp or they all left from shutter. But I don't know, the most that this can really do is stop any pressure from coming in. Plus, you can also drop down and start playing by crates if need be, which is where we'll talk about more of the pushes soon to come. But yeah, the general idea with this is during an Uber exchange, you sit over here, or you could start sitting in this corner preemptively, but I don't really agree with this. Mostly because people already see the cross, and if you drop down, people are going to notice you, and you have less time to react to people in under. But we'll talk about that later. For now, though, you play bats, you pay attention to shutter. If people are in shutter, it's best to come back, get a buff. If your team goes bats, then you can fight it. If your team goes shutter, you might be able to fight it with them. The most important thing is that you're going in on your demos call, and you're going in based off of what you as a player can see from your own team. So if your team is walking back into you, get a buff, but you're also protecting shutter. If your team wants to push out shutter, then you can go ahead, you could start peeking a little bit, you could start walking out and doing all the things that you need to do. If not, you don't see them in shutter, that's when you can go ahead and utilize fans. You could just walk over here, try to get something done, but yeah, that's the most that you can really do. Any questions about bats? Okay. There's some other things that I wanted to talk about bats, and that was walking from bats itself over to crates and playing nearby under. We will talk about this at length when it comes to holding, but the reason why you want to get this position is because you want to be reactive to their proactivity. What do I mean? The best way that I can really go towards this spot is to get a buff, make sure that nobody's bombing, because that's what you should be doing if you're holding this spot. You're not peeking, but you're just holding for a bomb, looking for anybody behind, checking for spies if need be, but you're not taking chip damage, you're just holding this spot. You get a buff. You walk all the way through here, and you hug the right side. Why the right side? Because you see that angle, people on roof can see you better if you're on the left side. So, peek the right side, make sure nobody's secret. While you're walking up, don't hide over here, don't stay over here. Just walk in as best as possible, and then boom. This is the spot where you want to be. You look at under, you look towards crates, and when your team is ready to push, whether it be from shutter, whether it be from bats, you're with your team, you hear the call that you're pushing, you see people, maybe you can back up a little bit and let them walk into you, or catch them by surprise if it's somebody like a heavy. But the most important thing is that you and your team are walking in together, and this is really, really, really good during a dry fight, not so much during a post. So keep that in mind. The rotate is really long. If people catch you during the Uber exchange and you take damage or possibly die, it's really bad for you. You could be out of the fight even if you didn't die. This is the way that I think about a fight. If you don't get buffs, if you take unnecessary damage, that is only going to dampen every single one of your pushes, any single one of your posts, anything like that. If your presence on your team is not being felt during the post fight immediately when the post fight begins, there's something wrong. And moreover, if you commit to eating a sandwich,
Yes.
this is basically you being out of the fight for 5 seconds. That's what I attribute it to. I wouldn't say healing up and being ready for a fight. I'd say, hey, I'm out of the fight for a couple of seconds.
Very well.
And I'd let my team know about it. If for any reason you're eating a sandwich, which is what you should be doing if you happen to take any damage and you're not nearby your med, or you take damage while you're nearby your med and you don't want them to waste all of their heals and all their time healing other people onto you. You eat, but again, it's 5 seconds. 5 seconds for that. Please take that into consideration. Even something like the Delocus bar or the banana, for example. Even though you get it back quicker, you still spend that time eating and not fighting. And that's what your team needs. They need somebody with presence. They need somebody who can help them push. Not somebody who's eating and then will walk in as soon as your team is kind of eating it, for lack of a better word. This is one of the few places where that can really happen during a post. Try to make this a dry fight only situation. But if you do happen to get into the spot and nobody's on the roof, your demo's already clearing them out, you guys are ready to push, this spot becomes really, really good because people aren't expecting you to be over here, first off, and second off, if they do expect you, there's not much that they can do. Sure, they can send a sniper on bats, but for the same reason sniper going shutter just to shoot the heavy, he's not shooting anyone else. If you get a kill, the sniper kills you on bats, that's fine. That's fine, because you spawn quicker, your team gets that immediate advantage, and even though you're out of the fight for a little bit, you're going to come back quicker. And you're going to support your team that way. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of health, be mindful of your life. But don't feed. But also don't take your life into consideration. Don't try to... I guess don't feed, but also don't bait. Bait as much as you can until your team starts to really hurt without that presence being felt. We'll talk about this spot more later on a hold and why this would be really good for that. But for a dry fight, if you can get here, it's pretty alright. It's not necessarily ideal, not necessarily something I'd go for in any situation, but if I can get here, it's really nice. With that being said, there's two ways that you can get there quicker. The first way is just balls to the walls, peeking with Fist of Steel, and then just getting to this angle. People see you immediately. I don't really like this approach. I really like going in from the back and just walking in that way. The other idea is kind of the worst parts of both things that we talked about so far, amplified. Walking over here with the Fist of Steel, peeking 2 sightlines in a row, and then what do you know? You peek the same sightline for a second time, and then, yeah. I don't like this. Don't sit in this corner, please. If you have to, then you have to, but this is the worst of the 3 options. Any questions about bats and, by proxy, playing under, playing crates for a post-fight? For a push? Alright, sweet. Also, just keep in mind, when you're holding this and you're on bats getting buffs, like I said, being in an angle where you're watching your sniper, looking out for spies, watching for a bomb or any single pressure coming on from your fans or from your bats, it's really good. Do not take unnecessary chip damage. The same thing can be applied with Shutter. Now with Shutter, this is one of the few places where, you know, taking chip damage is kind of expected, but you still shouldn't take it. If you do take it, it's unfortunate, but it's not going to lose you guys the round. So, with a 450 buff, because you always want to have that before any single push or any single idea that you might have. You peek the shutter, check for stickies, and this is assuming that you're pushing. Your team's pushing off bats, for example. Your sniper's not with you in the shutter. We'll talk about if he is. But ideally, there's 2 places to push if you are pushing from shutter. There's this spot, which is identical to playing secret. And then there's also this spot over here, which doesn't really get utilized enough. But I think it's even more powerful. You use this spot to clear out stickies, maybe by just opening the shutter a little bit and letting the demo's reflex dead it without you taking any damage. Sometimes you can rev and then shoot them individually if the demo's negligent about them, but ideally you should stay revved in this spot purely because if a post-fight happens, you need to be in. And you need to start dealing damage immediately. And you want to deal damage that's full, not half damage if you just jump revved, which I also don't want you doing. Which is why this spot is really powerful as well. You do all of these things. Usually the stickies are around this side of the shutter. If they place them over here, it's not so much weird as much as it is a knowledge check. So, you peek out over here, you shoot people on crates, shoot people by toxic if you can, but you don't stay in this spot. Never stay in this spot. Be dynamic. Go to toxic, go all the way over to the death wall if you get the chance. But then, be the line that people cross with you. Or people are pushed away from. Same ideas we've been talking about before. If you're playing with your sniper in shutter, there's 2 ways that you can do it. You can either let him peek, which is just watching over him while he peeks the shutter like this, or you peek for him. Your sniper gives you the call, you give the ready call, or you say you're ready, he says he's ready, you open, you guys fire at the same time, or maybe he takes the shot, backs up, and then you can try playing a little bit like this. Maybe you both back up, but it's versatile for what it's worth. If a sniper does not want to go bats, he does not want to go ramp, and by proxy, you along with him, or your pyro, you don't have to go onto ramp with him all the time. Your pyro can do that job. You could sit with him in shutter. You can open the shutter for him, or protect him in shutter for anybody like a spy, anybody like a soldier bomb, or just protecting him from anybody walking in general. With that being said, when you're holding this spot, people will be walking into shutter sometimes. And when they do, it does not matter if you die in the spot or not. You are the first thing they see. You are the first thing that is dealt with. What that allows your team to do is to get the call, hey, they're pushing shutter. So they're going to leave. Usually this is going to be paired up with an Uber exchange, or people are going to be prepared to fight this if they are not Ubered. And if that's so, you can get a really, really easy pick on the demo, on the heavy. I wouldn't try focusing the scout because he sometimes goes over here as well. But don't try to feed into the shutter. If you peek like this and people walk into you, that's kind of bad on your part. With the 450, wait for them to walk into you. Then you can start dealing damage wherever you want. But also don't walk like this sometimes if they are pushing shutter. Instead, peek like this. It seems weird, it seems like an unnecessary thing to do. I'd much rather you do this on this side to clear stickies than I would you trying to do this to clear stickies, which you can't really do. But the other thing is, you peek the same level, or you peek the same sightline with the same amount of coverage, but you're not so... You're actually... My bad. Sorry, I'm talking about this in a confusing way. When you peek the angle wide, they can shoot you at the same time you can shoot them. If you peek the angle like this, they can shoot you first without you being able to shoot them. Sometimes it's a visual thing, like you'll show your hitbox and your person before before you can see their person. But the most important thing is that you're body blocking this area. So you playing in a versatile spot where you can quickly go from one place to the other, yeah, it's going to be good. So utilize that. Now, if your team is pushing from bats, your sniper's not in shutter, like I said before, you're pushing out over here. The main thing that really gets me sometimes is that sometimes there's just a sniper watching shutter. Please wait for a call on their sniper before you peek that. Or you ask for a sniper to peek that with you, so that even if you die, maybe the other sniper dies and your team gets a better fight because of it. The other thing that you can do is just see if your team can push out shutter with you, which is really nice. But other times, when your team has already dropped off bats and the sniper's not a worry, don't hesitate. You walk in, walk above, check for anybody in secret, check for anybody on ramp, on toxic. You're just walking in, supporting your team. Alright? The other thing that you can also do, if you do happen to get shutter, this is the secret fourth way that you can go onto crates. You can actually walk through secret, and you can come around to crates, but this is kind of secret for a reason. This takes you out of the fight. It's very slow for you to rotate out. If your team's already in, I never suggest doing this. But it is an option, so utilize it. With that being said, is there any questions on any push at all? Because that's pretty much all of them. Also, sorry, I've been stuttering a lot. I've had a little bit of, not so much a speech impediment, but I have been very, very, not so much selective with my words, but very not react. God damn, even I'm doing it right now. Sometimes it's hard for me to...
I've been able to follow along.
Alright, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. For anybody watching, I just do that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it's all good.
I don't have a script for this, I'm just going based off of what's in my noggin. But... Alright, sweet. So with that, you push out a point. Like I said, you can play over here, and if you're playing over here by crates, that's when you can start going ahead and doing the... Oh. So this allows you to do that as well. But this is more so a beneficial thing for you to do on defense if you're holding the point, as opposed to offense if you're pushing the point. I will go into more depth about this when we're talking about a hold. But generally, not always, you don't really want to go under for a push. The main reason being, you're away from the fight, your teammates are not going to support you, and you're not supporting your teammates. So, you guys are working against each other. If you're playing over here by under, that's not going to really be good. Let's be completely honest. You're just going to walk in, your team's going to take a fight, lose, and then what is the other team going to do? Oh, there's a heavy under because he's shooting the mini on fans, for example. Let's wrap around and kill him. There's not much that you did in that mid-fight. Or not even during that mid-fight, but there's not much that you did during that push. Let that be a hold-only thing. Unless for some reason you want to. In which case, have fun. Have fun. But, yeah. From the right side push, on point. By crates. You mostly just want to look for an angle, look for an opportunity. You're not so much being mindful of the people on bats as much as you are aware of where the sniper is. If the sniper is called over by ramp, for example, peek. If he's by shutter, peek. If he's by bats, be a little bit hesitant. But I'd still peek nonetheless. The main thing that I'd want you to try and do is to try and just peek the angle a little bit, try to get an advantage for your team. I wouldn't try walking up immediately. I would just try to get some space so that your team is walking with you, as opposed to them catching up with you. And also, this is not going to prevent anybody on roof from dealing with you as well. So when you're pushing this, you might be able to go over here by the left side, try to help your team like that, but I mean, that's a bit too long of a rotate. That's only going to really apply if the other team is out. So just be prepared for any single pressure that comes your way. And with that, we can talk about holds. Now, holds is where it's going to get extremely fucking polarizing. Because so many people, even now, will sit over here regardless of the Uber percentage. And I used to be the exact same way. I used to take Ubers by this spot. I used to think that this was the best way that you can play heavy on this map. It is not. Before I get into that, though, let's talk about just playing for a sack, playing to get out, playing for a possible Uber exchange through your shutter. Because for as good as it is for you guys to hold on the point, sometimes you need to do your chores. And other times there's other things that you need to worry about that prevents you from holding the point the same way if you had Uber exchange and anybody up. Or everybody up. Not anybody, but everybody up. The way that I would play for sacks is by two different ways. One, I'm playing over by toxic. This is usually if there's no pressure coming from shutter. This is an idealized situation. This is what you'd want to do if people are just sacking and no more. If people are on the roof during the sack, you check for spies. If people are not on the roof, you be mindful of anybody bombing in, but you also just be alert for spies. The main decloak spots are right over here. Right over here by the corner of ramp. In this part of the shutter, which is really weird, but the spy is immediately in to kill you. And secret. The other ones are also on point walking in, but that's kind of not really a sack. You know? So be mindful of that. Also fans. But yeah, you're just playing behind, you're just looking for people bombing in, and you're doing your best to shoot them from the sky, to kill them in midair. And also being aware of spies wherever they do come up. If they are dead, Uber percentages are, you know, evening out, or maybe they just don't have Uber, maybe they're all dead. This is the best spot for you to play. I don't really play this spot all too often, because idealized situations, they don't come up too often. So, I play this instead. This spot seems weird at first because you kind of do the exact same thing, but you're behind. You don't want to give them space. But why do we sit here? Simple. If you're playing over here, there's a chance that they can walk shutter, they can dry fight, they can uber exchange. If there's an uber exchange and it's possible that they can peek a sniper on ramp, maybe toxic, maybe shutter, maybe fans, maybe demo drops down, maybe demo walks through shutter, maybe he goes toxic and starts spamming you out. There's not much that you can do. And especially if you're placed in this spot where you can only walk out 2 angles, both of them are not really good, because walking out over here is the fastest way to do it. It's best as a preventative measure before you take damage. If you walk out over here when people are on the point fighting you, they're just going to walk in and kill you. The exact same thing happens over here, but to a lesser extent, because there's many corners, many angles, and there's a drop down with a health and ammo pack, but people are still going to run in. So, how do we counter this? You play the shutter anyway. This allows you guys to back up, close the shutter if need be, regroup off of bats, regroup shutter, and this is just going to allow you guys to push into their combo while you guys still have the point. This is really good if you guys have an uber exchange and they don't. Or they do, and they didn't use when they were walking out. The main idea is that your demo and scout, they'll walk shutter, they'll do their job with an uber exchange, and they're either going to back up or they're going to hold the point because they can. What your job is you're just watching for bombers, watching for spy as well, but you're also just being aware of anybody walking into shutter. If there's people who are going to pressure you out, like a demo, like a sniper, you back up, you get 450 heals if you can. Don't ask your medic for a 450 if you took chip damage, for example. Be mindful of where your team wants to walk. And when your demo gives the call that he wants to walk, you walk in the angle that you can. And try to do everything that you can, like if it was a normal push. You know what I mean? So, like I said before, if your demo's already by shutter, maybe if it's like, okay, so here's the one time that I would walk into shutter with an uber exchange. It's this specific example right here. If for whatever reason, your team wants to take an uber exchange and they don't have uber at all, let's just say their medic's dead. That would be an ideal situation for you to walk out with your team, if they have uber. It's not ideal still, but you're walking with your team nonetheless. You're right behind them, getting ready to play in the positions that you normally would, or if anything, just capping point. Also, I forgot to mention one thing. If you are playing over here, the best way for you to cap, if you don't have the point, is standing over here. Which seems really weird, but you kind of just make do with what you can. If there's a sniper peeking this angle, there's not much you can do. If a sniper's peeking in any angle, there's not much you can do, but this is the best place for you to stand nonetheless. Regardless, if your team's backed up, you don't want to be in. Never feed, okay? So, your team is getting ready to push bats, then you push shutter. If your team's ready to walk out shutter, you're already here, then you could push shutter as well. If your team is in shutter and you're not by there, maybe you can peek fans a little bit. Maybe you can drop down if there's nobody under, if nobody's on roof. Try to deal with people that way. Because the other thing too, it's like a mid-fight. You guys are set up for a push, they're not. They're getting their players in position. If you guys walk out with an uber, that disrupts that. You can possibly get a lot of kills with that. You won't, but your team will. And that's what's important. The other thing too, like we mentioned before, this spot is versatile. You can pretty much play shutter, play bats, given any situation. But you have to make that correct choice. Sometimes it would be better for you to just get a 450 buff while your team is pushing out shutter. You have that prep time, you have everything going good for you. If nobody's able to get you off of the places that you want to be at, with prep time, it's really good. Now, is it ideal for you to go under your secret, going over to crates? Probably not. But if your team is pushing shutter and you drop off bats, the only thing that's going to really fuck you up is if somebody else is in shutter. And as we demonstrated, that doesn't happen all too much. And even more so, if they do, they're weird. They're so weird. Why would a heavy do this? He's baiting his team. But If he dropped down beforehand and nobody saw him, then it's a good play because he had that prep time to work with. Why did I say it was bad beforehand, you might be asking? I said it was bad beforehand because of the prep time, of the time it took for you to get to the ideal spot where you want to be pushing from, being way too long. Now, you can still work with a long prep time, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get into that ideal position unless everything goes right, or they make mistakes, which is what you don't want. You want to force mistakes, not let them make mistakes on their own. Of course, there's a time and place where you need to capitalize off of that, but for learning, you don't want to learn from that. So, be mindful of shutter, be mindful of bats. Most of the time, you're going to be pushing from those angles. If anything, if you want to go crates from bats, the best place for you to do that is from fans, because you don't want to sit over here. You want to drop down, play crates a little bit if you know that nobody's on roof, if you know nobody's under. If you're playing fans, here's the best part. If any one of those situations happen, like people are walking in on roof, people are walking in from under, you see that. You can play for that as well. You can deal with the people on roof. You can ask for other people to deal with the people on roof. You can look at people under. You might be able to deal with them better as well. Like, let's just say the heavy's trying to aggro peek. Maybe then you can go over here a little bit. Because by then your team has space on the point. And all you're really doing is just dealing with the people under, if not just completely ignoring them if you're playing shutter. So, be mindful of that. If you want to push bats, be mindful of these two things that can impress you. If you're pushing through shutter, be mindful of where your team is walking, by the way. But also just being mindful of any single angle that you're being pressured from. Now, with that being said, why don't we go ramp and push from ramp instead? You're with your combo, you have 450 buffs, but sometimes you just walk out like this. Let's not do that. Do not build that habit. Walk out into shutter if you're trying to deal with the sack. And as soon as the sack's done, there's nobody walking in, that's when you can return to your positions. But if they choose to walk out, consider backing up, using your Uber, killing the med, and then walking back in from shutter, bats, anything like that. Now, for this secret angle that we talked about, remember how we were talking about prep time and how I was building onto that? This is where it all comes together. Because this is not the best way to play for a hold, right? This is a good preventative measure for your teammates to die and then walk back in with a lot of health, with a lot of coordination. But this isn't the ideal situation you want to be in. You're still relinquishing stuff to let them give it back to you. No. If you want to hold this, let me tell you about the 0 to 79% rule and the 80% rule. 0 to 79%, you're playing over here, to varying degrees. You're not so much playing over here by this angle, which you can do, and if you are playing over by their crates, then the one thing that you are looking out is for people pressuring bats, including this left side. So instead of sitting over here waiting for a sniper to kill you, you play over here, making sure that nobody's dropping off from any single angle. Or you're playing in the back over here, which is what you should ideally be doing, because you're closer to your combo, you can back up quicker, because like I said before, you don't want to be pushing into here. Unless you're guaranteed to get the kill. Like, let's just say a heavy drops from over here with Fist of Steel. You can deal a lot of damage to the guy, but I wouldn't chase him. Even if he doesn't die, let your teammates deal with that. Because what is he going to do? He's going to eat, he's going to take the health pack, he's going to do whatever that allows your team to walk in, kill him. If not, you get the call that Heavy's going to be playing by crates. If not, he's already going to be playing by under. You can back up a little bit, but you can also just go under as well. We'll talk about that later, though. Very soon. Very soon. But from if you have 0% Uber, you'll play up here, just watching for people trying to take a dry. But as soon as it gets to 79%, or close towards the 70s, you're playing all the way back over here. So it's like a gradient. Every single percentage that your team goes up, you back up, and this is assuming it's evens. If it's disad or advantage, then play like it is, right? you know, then be mindful of people trying to sack in, then be very aggressive if your team really wants to be aggressive with ad. And if you guys have disad, then maybe it might not be a good idea to push this entirely either. Maybe you have to dry it. You know, maybe you have to play this spot preventatively. Or, moreover, if you guys are closing in and it's 80% Uber, you get a buff and you play this spot right here, like we talked about beforehand. Why this spot in particular? Because if you play this spot, you are open to the left and the right angle, but you're also open to up and down with no sightline on anything. So what's the best place for you to stand? Right here, you're looking at under, you're looking above. You're not being shot at by the people on the roof. They don't even know you're here. You can see for people, you can see the people bombing into your bats, so you can call that out. You can see people walking into secret. You can even check to see if spies are in this angle. A lot of spies will drop down over here or decloak right here at this angle. It's very hard for a spy to stab you. Shoot you, maybe, but at that point, you're calling it out. With that being said, the best part about this spot is the versatility. If the Ubers happen, you can just sit here. The enemy team is not going to walk in with their Uber exchange to deal with you over here. That's weird. The other thing too, you're looking out for people walking under. And even more so, if you have the time and you're feeling ballsy. With that Uber exchange, that's the time that's given to you to get over to the spots that you want to get at. Because then you can sit over here, you can say, hey, I'm under for the post fight. I'm ready to peek whenever you are. Then you slowly peek, post fight happens. I'm by their crates, I'm getting in. And then you can play the angle like this. But even if you don't play under, you can still finally walk up. You could play over here. And then you could start playing the angle that I talked about beforehand. And the most important part with this spot is that you're not walking in, you're just preventing them from getting any sort of cap time. What does that look like? You target the person that's closest to you or who's farthest forward. Why is that important to make a difference? Why is that important to differentiate? People can be playing over here by crates, namely a heavy, while people like a demo would be walking in over here. If people walk past a certain point over here, like let's just say they cross, you know, maybe you're peeking over here. If they're past this line, they are dead. Or if they're close to this line, even a little bit, or even a little bit away, like right over here, they're dead. They cannot escape from you just dealing so much pressure to them. At the same time, though, you're shooting first. If the heavy wants to be a little bit proactive and kill you, he can. So, be mindful of that. You wait for your team to walk out. You wait for your team to call a dry fight. Maybe you see them over here. Maybe you wait for them over here. But the most important part is that you have the ability to peek. But I wouldn't say walk forward. So keep that in mind. Anyways, I love this spot so much. Let's talk about under for a little bit, because this not only allows you to play over here, it allows you to play under as well. Because of the prep time you have, you can either go during an Uber exchange, before an Uber exchange, but I wouldn't do it after. If you are doing this beforehand and you have some time to sit in this angle, play down here in the beginning. You don't want to stay here, especially since a spy can see you. Anybody who's walking under can see you, which is why you use this spot as kind of like a little outpost. Then you can start playing the angle like this. I wouldn't say peek immediately like this, but be mindful of people dropping down. And also, and here's the most important thing, here's the thing that fucks everything up, your shadow can be seen from the wall. Could I get somebody in this game to demonstrate that? Alright, Swedge, stand by this angle right here. I'm going to look at the wall, and what do we see? We see you. Yeah, Swedge, I'm not gonna lie, you won't be able to see it until I post the video, but, like, it is fucking huge. I can see your minigun, I know it's you. Likewise...
I can get in the spot and he can go spectator.
Yeah, that's fine, if you wanted to. Yeah, we have all the time in the world. We only spent, like... Jeez. We only spent, like, an hour 15 talking about this. Yeah, just hold that spot if you have shadow. Do you see that shadow? Yeah, it's fucking massive. And the same thing actually happens if you're on the other side of this wall. Like, if you're hugging this wall, for example, you can see shadows through the wall. If you wanted to move a little bit, Parrot. Like, you could see my shadow through the wall. And for demonstrations, people get on that spot. Exactly, it's on the ground in a weird spot, but this is why having shadows is like a mini wall hack. Look at that! He's standing right here and he's fucking... Oh my god, dude, that's so weird.
Wait, it's on the floor?
It's on the floor right here. Watch, look.
Oh, you're right, shit.
No, but like, it's on that part of the floor too. But like, play on the wall for a little bit, on death wall, away from crates. Try to, look at the shadow! What the fuck is that?
Some evil esoteric shadow pattern knowledge.
That's why we look
Shadow
up, by
back.
the way. That's why we look up like
Can
this.
this game get an update?
We look up like this if we want to see somebody. And the same thing happens if somebody's playing over here by this side. This is why this is so bad, because people just prepare for a fight because they know you're sitting here. Exactly. And you can't... I didn't even see you when you were shooting me. Stand over here for a second so I can show everybody. Yeah, I can, like, see your foot. So, don't stand there to prep. Stand over here to prep. More of a reason for you not to play over by this side. If you are walking up, though, that's when I would start peeking lower. Nobody. That's when I'm peeking this spot. Like that.
Very well.
Alright? Now, are there any questions with any way that we're playing default? Because those are the couple of ways that you can play default. Any questions at all? Okay. Oh. What's up?
My soldier on my team is like, why are you gatekeeping the review? And I said, it's a heavy review.
Oh.
Yeah,
The amount
that's
of
it,
times...
like, dude, it's not. He's like, yeah, and there are macro incidents in which knowing the situation can apply to all classes, dude.
He can watch the video later. He's not gatekept. Nobody's gatekept.
I'm
He's
telling
just,
him, bro. I
he's
just
on the
told
wa-
him. He's like, I need it now. I'm like, you don't.
bro, he's
The amount of
on the wait
times-
list right now. He's on the wait
The amount
list.
of times
We're
you
the
sit
chosen ones. We're gatekeeping.
in a VC and you're doing a heavy review, people will join, see it's a heavy review, and then dip.
Yeah. Alright, but one last thing I wanted to talk about. There's many beginner traps that happen when you're playing over here by Toxic. I only really want you peeking Toxic if you're playing Shutter peeking out on the point. I don't want you to go here preventatively. Or, not preventatively. Sorry, my bad. I was thinking about saying that when I was talking about the spot earlier. But, I don't want you playing this spot all the time. You know? This spot would be really good if you're peeking out over here. It would be much better for you to push here as opposed to post here. You know? Of course, you can do that, and there are a lot of benefits to it, but there's also a lot of disadvantages to it. So, if you're on the point, if your team wants to stay on the point, that's the way you do it. Now, if you can't get over to crates, let's just say they take an Uber to you by surprise, you can kite over here. You can play this wall watching for bombers. Then, with your demo, you can start peeking the angle like this. Or you can start peeking into Toxic. That's one of the few situations that you can really do this during a post-fight, during a dry... or maybe during a dry fight as well, if they catch you by surprise. Because this is going to happen more often in a dry fight than it would be for an Uber. Like, let's just say you're getting pushed off, people are shooting you, you need to heal up, because you don't want to take heals away from your medic and your team.
Yes.
You eat over here. And then you do one of two things. You either play Toxic, or you play over here by this left side wall. This is only really good if the team is already on the point. This is much better if the team's not on the point and you have space. Of course, by that point, you can start choosing to walk up over here because you don't want to let them get the space. But if somebody's ramp, if people are in shutter, nothing's wrong with this. At least not in the beginning anyway. But again, being mindful and playing this over here for a post fight could be really good. But also just playing here for a dry fight is also kind of unrealistic, you know? It's only really good for a post fight. But at the same time, it's really, really good if your team just had an idea on where their enemy's at. Your spy, your people, or your soldier, anybody who's calling for you, in front of you, or behind them, really need to do their job. If it's uncalled that a sniper's on ramp, it doesn't matter how good you are as a heavy, he's just going to kill you. He's going to kill anybody who's playing forward. So please be mindful on where they're walking. Please listen for the spy calls, because if they're getting ready to Uber, your spy's going to be screaming it. He's going to be telling your team that. And by proxy, your team is going to then react to that information and play in a way that's correct. What does that mean for you? Depending on the situation, depending on how much time you have to go from point A to point B, you have a time limit. Sometimes there's no time limit at all. But sometimes there is. Take that information as you will, but as we've discussed beforehand, prep time is really important. Really, really important in order for you to play the angles where people are not expecting you. So please keep that in mind. With that being said, there's one thing I want to talk to you about before I go ahead and divulge information about holding forward. If for some inexplicable reason your team wants you to take an Uber, here's what you do. You never walk forward. The most that you can really do is like peek this. But you're waiting for people in shutter, they take an Uber. You shoot the demo if he bombs in, mostly because it prevents him from walking into your combo. But it also is important because the way that you play the Uber, if you're taking a full 9-second Uber, you are forcing them to flash every single person. What does that mean for you? Not much, because you can't really do much with that information. You can't really do much with that situation, I should say, because what they're going to do, oh, we're flashing a lot, let's back up. They already had their Ubers out, and we're going to build ours faster, but like a smidgen. So, yeah, you never really want to walk into shutter after the Uber. We'll talk about walking into their shutter in a little bit, but if you're taking an Uber, that's all you can really do. And even then, what else do you do? Do you play for a post fight over here? Maybe. But at that point, you know, you could just be playing over here instead, or maybe you could play up here if your team has your support. The thing about this spot is that it's really volatile. People can just spam you out even if you're sitting over here. This is not a good place to hold all the time, because you are going to be forced out, and if you're forced out, you're going to either eat or die. And that's not even saying, hey, what's going to happen if people on ramp are pressuring me? Or people in shutter are pressuring me? What if my team's not doing their job? You know, what if a soldier's not on ramp? What if a demo's not looking at shutter? What if a demo doesn't help me when we're fighting bats? If people are trying to walk in on me? Unfortunately, there's not much that we can really do. The most that we can really do is use the information to our advantage. That's when we can start going ahead and be like, oh, okay, I could just play over here if I really wanted to, if I wanted to throw it off, or throw them off. That's when I'd start playing more aggressive, and that's where we're going to be leading up to. But before that, any questions at all? Okay, right. So, there's a couple of ways that you could play this aggressively. And I'll start talking a little bit fast because there's not really that much theory to it. Everything is easy to understand up until this point. But this is where it gets really fucking easy because it's just like, dude, I'm sitting in this corner. Dude, I'm sitting under their secret. Dude, I'm walking into their bats. That's all. But let's just say I want to play aggressive with my team. We're getting ready to push into their bats with a possible Uber exchange. This is one of the things that you can do with that. You get a 450 buff, you sit by this wall. Why? They peek into you, they're not expecting you to immediately be here. The Uber exchange will go like this, and it's more about the prep that you do walking to this wall than it is about taking the Uber itself. You should not be a part of the Uber. Again, you should be not so much away from this angle, but just being ready to play into your team once that Uber finally gets through. Because a scout in a demo should be walking in with Uber, you should be trailing behind them. Moreover, you should be looking at any single angle where people are going to be talking, or people are going to be pushing from. This includes lobby, this includes boiler, which is the area over here, which includes on top of their on top of this area by lobby as well. Nearby bats, and of course, playing bats in general. Once that's done, and assuming your team is not already in this position, that's when you can choose to either back up, or that's when you can choose to hold. Here's how you hold. You play this spot, and you transition from both sides looking for where their combo is trying to walk from. If they're on boiler, you'll see it through the window. If they're if they're lobby, they'll walk through the shutter. If they're bats, it's called. You can play back here waiting for them to walk up, watching lobby as well. Or if your team is just getting some sort of advantage, just maybe a sightline, and you choose to back up, that's when you can start playing over here. This is what I really like to do, mostly because people are going to be pushing from bats, from shutter, before they try to push over by ramp. The longer it takes for them to push, the worse this spot becomes. But it's much better for you to sit in this spot than it would be for you to sit secret, which I really don't like. I don't want you to do that. Especially if you guys have disad, this creates a bad habit, because what are you going to realistically do? You're going to watch people drop down, and then you might kill one, you might drop an Uber even, but that's not good heavy. That's just playing to correct their mistakes, or to capitalize off of those mistakes, I should say. Smart teams will not do this. They'll push shutter. They're just going to drop down like a couple of players, and even still, they're going to be fast players. And if not, it's going to be like a heavy, and then you're called under here while you guys have the point, while they have a faster respawn time, when they have information on you that you don't have on them, and is bad. And that's not including the spy who randomly decloaks around this corner, or the spy who just starts shooting you and then backs up the bats over here, then starts shooting you again. Or the people looking at you through grates. So do not make this a spot where you sit at. And the same thing goes with secret. The reason why it's acceptable over here is because when you're sitting up in this spot, people are not expecting it. If people drop down, you're in a position above them, which doesn't really seem like a big thing. But a lot of the classes that you're going to be fighting are people like Demo, people like Heavy, who's going to need that extra second to look up, to arc their pills, to hit you with any single bullet. You're going to have a much better advantage because they're not expecting you to be up, let alone behind them. This also applies to shutter. People are going to be looking straight through shutter. People are going to be walking through. They're not going to pay attention to this area. That's why this area is so good for soldier, and why soldier should be bouncing from this spot and this spot during a standard hold. That's why when you're walking out of shutter on the other team, you're not on the other team, but when you're pushing the point, that's why it's important for you to look up at that spot, especially if rockets are being angled downward, going over here, for example. But, like I said before, you play the spot over here, and then you can choose to push in. That's step number 1. And step number 2, you could skip if every single other person on the other team is dead. This is especially prevalent during a mid-fight, or during a post-fight where everybody just dies. But if you can get up here without any sort of fight, yeah, it's fine. If you have to get up here because of a fight, because you want to hold forward, you want to be aggressive, that's the way to do it. You look at lobby, you look at bats, you look over here by their lobby technically, but yeah. There's also 2 other things that you can do. You can, so there's 3 other things, my bad. I'll talk about toxic, playing their toxic, and playing over by this wall because it's pretty much the exact same thing. You have yourself playing over here, you have another soldier playing with you over here. The main goal of this is to just be versatile, because if your team wants you to back up, you have the ability to do so. Rather easily, I might add. But you're just mindful of whoever's over here, but you're also exposing yourself to bats, you're exposing yourself to every single sightline, which is why I don't really like this spot all too much anymore. You're not getting anything done, you're away from your team. You're getting hit by chip damage all the time. No. If you want to sit in this angle, you need to go balls to the walls, let them walk into you type energy. That's why you sit over here close to their shutter, not all the way in the back corner over here. Why do you see that? Do you see bats? Do they see you on bats anymore? Nope. Do they see you on bats over here? Yep. Do they see you over here by ramp? They're always going to look over here on ramp, so don't even worry about it. Ideally, somebody's watching over here, but 9 times out of 10, if your soldier's playing over here, he's going to back up. And if he backs up, then you back up as best as you can, but this is kind of a really bad spot for you to back up. That's why I don't really like a lot of the aggressive plays on point, per se, but this is really good at getting in if you want to get something done. If you know you can get something done. Like, let's just say they're not expecting you. This is really, really good theory if they have 10 seconds left on the clock and you're not sitting over here by bush, which is what you should be doing if you're holding the point and there's 10 seconds left on the clock for them to push. Moreover, you just let them walk into you. You deal with the people closest to point. You ignore the heavy over here by crates unless everybody else is dead. But the same thing applies over to here. When people are walking out from shutter, you let them walk out, you let them bomb over. That's when you can start dealing with the people in shutter and then start dealing with the people on point. Now with this spot in shutter. Of course, that shouldn't happen all the time. That's not even an ideal situation. That's like an extraordinarily ideal situation. So, people usually play over here by this spot to just fight the heavy. They really want to fight. And here's how you do it. You let them peek the shutter first because they're not expecting you. Then you keep that shutter open and you fight them. This is really good, especially if a sniper's in the shutter as well, so you can deal with the heavy and then deal with the sniper, and then back up. But, and this is one of the few times where it actually is better for you to be close to here and behind them. Even if I don't want you doing this all the time. I don't even think it's really possible in this day and age, because remember, I want you guys to be playing on bats. I want you guys to be playing in shutter when an Uber exchange does happen. So, if there's for some reason no heavy or nobody at all watching shutter, and you're playing this spot, and people are pushing from bats, people are pushing from ramp, you can walk into the shutter. And you can hide over here, you can, but you can also go onto bats, you can fight them like that. But again, I really don't suggest you try to look for this all the time. It just kind of happens. You know? And moreover, I don't want you to default to this every single time. I want you to default to having prep time so you can play over here. So you can have the time during an Uber exchange or during a post fight for you to just be over here fighting people or going into under with prep time and then fighting people. I don't want you doing all of these crazy ass plays. The only thing that I would really allow you to do is to walk over here, hold this angle like this, and walking in with your team if your team is walking in with you. That's coordinated. That's fine. This is just a hero play. The same exact thing for why I don't really like playing over here. But I really like playing over here. So why is that? Because if you sit by this angle, people walk into you, they're not expecting you, bam, you kill them. They don't even have a chance to run away because you're that close. Why is it bad? You're over here, you're away from your team, you're very far away from your team. The only thing that you can do is ask for bows. And even more so, if they know you're over here, they're just going to spam you out. And if you try to peek them, sure, you might get a kill, but you're getting a kill while you're holding the point. It's worse for you than it is for them. You have more to lose. So I don't really like playing over here, even though I do this a lot in pugs. I won't lie. It is pretty fun in pugs. But the other most important thing when it comes to playing aggressive is what you probably all know. It's very simple. You just watch out for people looking over here by grates. And yeah, you play this angle like this. You just wait for somebody to peek over here if there's already somebody playing over by this angle right here. If there is, wait for people to not see you and then boom, you kill them. And then that's pretty much it. If you shoot the shot first, people know you're over here. There's not much you're going to be able to do to run away. So you're over here to hide and kill somebody if it's beneficial for your entire team, like a sniper, for example. But if there's nobody and people are all walking off of bats, walking onto point, this is kind of a bait. I'm not going to lie. You don't want to do this all the time either. And moreover, if you do want to try and salvage something, the most that you can really do is try to avoid a sightline off bats. And instead go into their shutter where a telly might be, where people might be walking out from spawn. It's really bad. And even if you do try to push bats, like let's just say you try to push fans because it's the quickest way for you to do so, you have to hope that nobody with long range power can deal with you. Nobody close range power coming up behind you is going to look at you and MGE you. You're just going to hope that people ignore you. And that's when you go ahead and start making this a good play. For the same reasons why playing up here is really good. But the difference between playing up here and playing all the way in secret is that if you're playing up here, you're getting up here mostly because your team is done with a forward aggressive hold on their bats. And this is like the residue that's left behind, which is really, really nice because then you can wait for people to walk out, drop down if you need to, deal with people in shutter, and then get into a position where you're dealing with people on point. But instead, you chose to take a very long approach to that, and also one that's so timely that people are kind of being baited, and you're not really doing all too much. So, moral of the story, unless you're doing a forward hold with your team, or there's like a specific plan that you have with your soldier, I wouldn't try to forward hold. Yes, you can do these plays sometimes, and I wouldn't consider going like this to be a forward hold. I'd consider this to just be a standard hold with extra steps, but yeah. Try not to play any one of these spots for far too long. You'll get caught out, and even more so if people are smart about it. They're not even going to chase you, they're just going to let you do your own thing, and then send people to kill you. So, with that, are there any final questions? Because I am done with the Ashville review.
No. For me, at least.
Okay.
I'm good.
Sweet. Yeah, with that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to